Hello YouTube, my name is Bruno and today I'm very happy to welcome you to this React testing series. During this series, you will learn all the tools and techniques you need in order to create good unit and integration tests for your React applications. There are a few tools that we will use across all the videos in this series. They are Jest, React testing library, and TypeScript. If you know me, you know that I will also reserve 2 or 3 videos at the end of this series just for next.js testing, where we are going to test get server-side props, get static props, and connect it to a database. Now, in the first videos, I will take the assumption that you are starting your testing journey, so you have never done a test in your life. And taking that into account, I will take this video's opportunity to answer the 4 or 5 questions I received the most from people in your position. And the first of those 4 or 5 questions is regarding this testing list that I have over here. What's the difference between end-to-end testing, integration testing, and unit testing, and even when to use those? So let's start by the top one, end-to-end testing, because I will say it's the easiest one to explain and at the same time the one that everybody agrees on the explanation. Let's say that in your company you have a manual tester with some list of tasks that they need to do before you deploy to production. So they will click in the login button, they will put some passwords, they will see the login working. That task is with a check, so you can test the next task. But is a person doing that, and that's slow. So an end-to-end test is just automating this type of job with tools like Selenium or Cypress. Regarding integration testing is when we test 2 or more units, which leaves us with the question of, Bruno, so then what's a unit? Well, if you are coming from object-oriented programming, usually a unit for you in that world is a class. In the case of React components, we can say it's a component, but not everybody will agree with that distinction. So I usually like what C Dodds once said in his blog, and you should follow his blog. He said that he really doesn't care about the distinctions, what is an integration test or an end-to-end test. What he cares is the value that it's providing to the business, that you can catch bugs, and at the same time, that every time that you are doing a breaking change, your test will fail, because that's what the tests are there for, to catch the bugs that we create in our code, and also allows us to do refactoring of our code. That's what C Dodds wants. That's also what I usually like to have. But I will give you a real-world example, completely unrelated with code, just to show you that different teams can have completely different abstraction levels and call something a unit test and another team an end-to-end test, and both be right. Let's say that now you are working for a car company and you are in the assembly line receiving the engine from another team and fitting the engine into the car, receiving the seats from another team and putting the seats in the car, you receive the steering wheel, and your team sees every single of those pieces as a unit. So after a while, you start to notice that the engines that you put in the cars, sometimes they don't work. So you come up with the idea of creating a unit test to turn on the engine and turn off the engine before you assemble the engine in the car. You go to your CFO and you say, look, we are saving like 4 hours because every time that now the engine is broken, we don't need to remove the broken engine and put a new good engine inside the car that can also be broken, that engine. So with this alone, we save, let's say, 4 hours every time that happens. Your CFO loves that idea and tells you to go to the engine department and explain what you did. You arrive at the engine department and you say, hey, look, I did an amazing unit test for your engine. I'm turning on and off the engine. And everybody in that team will hate you at that second because they will ask you, hey, do you even know how an engine works? It's not a unit test. What you are doing is an end-to-end test. And they will tell you, look, in order for an engine to work, we need to have the pistons that go inside the cylinders. That alone is already an integration test. And then you have 1,000 more pieces in order for the engine to turn on and off. So what you are doing is an end-to-end test. And now you might ask me, Bruno, so which of those two teams is correct? Well, in reality, they are both correct. They are just working in completely different levels of abstraction. That's why I love that from C Dodds, that it just stopped referring what is the test type. Because if you go to the engine department and you say, oh, I created a new test, and that test is to turn on and off the engine and put the engine in the car, everybody across your company will agree with that test. I usually never name the type of tests. I just care about the value and the safety that that test is giving me. Like C Dodds says, the confidence the test gives you. Now, another question that I receive a lot is regarding what is mocking. I read mocking everywhere, Bruno. Why is that even useful? Let me give you the same example with the car company. Let's say that in order for you to turn on and off the engine, you need some kind of power, which will come from the battery. But usually you can't fit the battery in the cars immediately, because if the car is in storage for, let's say, 1 year, that battery will no longer work. So usually what factories do is they test it with something that they connect directly to a power wallet. So the test that they are doing doesn't rely on the battery, because the battery can even be already dead at that moment. So you are really just testing your engine. And that's what mocking means. You remove one part of your code and you replace that by something that is safer and at the same time is more reliable. It's much more reliable for you to connect your engine to a power outlet than connecting it to a battery that has different levels of quality, right? So you just want to test the engine. You don't care about the battery in this test. You mock the battery by something else. Then the third and the fourth question are actually kind of the same thing, which is, when should you test something and why should you test that something? And usually you will see people coming up with a priority chart with a risk of that chart. And everything that is high priority and high probability, you should create tests for it. There is no way around that. If you are lucky enough that your company allows you to have 100% code coverage and allows you to have everything, then you can ignore this section because this section is not for you. But some companies, especially startups, you don't have time to test every single component that you produce. So usually what I would say is ask yourself, if this bug happens, is this very dramatic for my company? Can it put my company at risk? If yes, test it. If it's something that you say, no, if it happens, nobody really cares, don't test it. I will give you an example. Let's say that you are in Amazon, and let's say that Amazon, for whatever reason, allowed you to change your profile picture. Is that an important feature if it stops working? No, actually. Today, Amazon, I don't think they even have a profile picture. So if it fails, it's not a huge deal. But if the credit card is not working and that flow is not working, it's very dramatic for Amazon because it's where they make revenue. So you should 100% test that with both integration and even end-to-end tests in that scenario, right? So usually what I test, I always ask this question, is this something that will happen quite a lot of times and is annoying enough to damage the reputation of my company? Fix. Is this something that even if that thing only has a 1 in a million chances of happening, it can destroy my company immediately? I will do that test. Everything that is in this corner over here, not important and not too dramatic if it happens, I usually will say you are quite okay to not test it. Of course, if you have the time, test everything in your application. That will be the ideal scenario. One very common question I hear is regarding this pyramid of testing. And if you went to university, your teachers were all the time bombarding you with this one, telling you that you should do a lot of unit testing, a bit less integration, and even less end-to-end testing. And why is that? Well, if you take again the example of the car and the battery, you know that if you have a lot of pieces working together in your end-to-end tests, it will be harder to not have some variability there. So your tests may become a bit flaky when a third-party API doesn't respond or something like that. That's why usually people start to mock a lot of stuff going down to the unit testing level. Now, a lot of people, myself included, I don't like that. I prefer something more like that. And I will give you some people online that you probably know that agree with me, or some of them looking at the date of the tweet, probably I agree with them because they said it before me. So Guillermo Rauch, the CEO of Vercel, creators of Next.js, said the following: write tests, not too many, mostly integration. And immediately after, one of the creators of CSS modules said, I'm assuming anyone who disagrees with this has attempted a significant refactor in a codebase with too many unit tests. In less than a minute, I will give you one example that happened to me, and you will understand this much better. But I will just read something from Dan Abramov, the creator or one of the creators of Redux, and he is currently working for Facebook in the React core team. And he said the following: a suite of integration tests written at the right level of abstraction is chef's kiss, right? You need to find the level that's just below where the flakiness occurs. So I already explained what flakiness is. Then it's much more useful than individual unit tests. you have someone else, C Dodds, once again, saying the following: if you have to delete your tests after refactoring, then what good did they do to you? This is what tests should be like. Now, I think I'm in a right mood to explain what happened to me in that situation. So I was building an application with one of my best friends, and the way we were testing our HTTP calls was to mock Axios. And we were doing that jest.mock. I will show you in a few videos how you do that, so don't worry too much. But we were mocking Axios. And when we decided to move to fetch, all our unit tests, they were completely broken, because now all our tests were expecting Axios to have been called, and Axios was not being called when we moved to fetch, because we were testing an implementation detail. In video, I think it's 6 or 7 of this series, I will explain how you can test without having to mock Axios or fetch. So in the future, if there is a new browser feature to replace fetch, you can just use that browser feature and your test will help you in that refactoring. That's what they meant, is your test should help you with your refactoring. If your users are still seeing roughly the same thing, or exactly the same thing in this case, your test shouldn't break. It's very frustrating when you go to an application, you change something, the behavior for the user is exactly the same, and then you have 10 tests that are failing right now because they are mocking something or expecting something which is an implementation detail. So usually what I say, and this is probably the best advice of all the series, is when you are testing, test the public interfaces or the public API of your components. If your components receive 4 or 5 parameters, pass those 4 or 5 parameters and just test what HTML your component is returning. Don't test, or at least avoid testing, internal components and mocking those internal components, because otherwise when you want to refactor, it will become a very big pain for you. Now, in the second video, I will show you how you can configure your application in order to have testing with jest, TypeScript, Next.js, React, and all the good things that you might want for all the videos that we will use. So that will be the base of all the videos, and that video is over here, is number 2. If you already know how to do that and you prefer to go to video number 3, it will be here, and over here at the top, it will be the full playlist. So if you click there, you will see all the videos that exist in the playlist, and just watch the ones that you care about. So I really hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you also enjoyed the next one, and I see you very, very soon. Bye-bye!